The entire royal court had gathered to watch the bride collapse. Snow battered the towering windows of Blackthorn Palace, while silver braziers hissed against the cold. Hundreds of nobles filled the great hall beneath banners, stitched with the ancient wolf crest of House Draven, their whispers slithering through the candlelit air like snakes waiting for blood. At the center of the hall stood the girl chosen to die. Alara Vey's wedding dress hung loosely from her thin frame, layers of pale silk, unable to hide how fragile she looked beneath the moonlit chandeliers. Her lips were nearly colorless. Dark veins shadowed the delicate skin beneath her eyes. Every breath sounded painful, shallow enough to vanish inside the roaring storm beyond the castle walls. Someone in the crowd laughed quietly. "She looks half buried already," another voice answered. "The curse may kill her before the vows finish." Ilara heard every word. She kept her chin lifted anyway. That was the cruel thing about suffering. If it lasted long enough, eventually humiliation became ordinary. People stopped seeing the wound because they expected it to remain open forever. Across the hall, Priestess Seraphine watched from beside the throne in robes white as old bone. The moon sigils tattooed across her throat gleamed beneath the candlelight. Her expression held calm certainty. Everything was proceeding exactly as she intended. "The bride will kneel," Seraphine commanded. Ilara obeyed slowly, one trembling hand gripping the altar for support as pain clawed through her chest. The sickness was worse tonight. It always worsened beneath a full moon. No healer had ever explained why. The royal physicians called it a wasting curse. The villagers called it moon rot. Children in Greymere used to run from her shadow because they believed death followed wherever she walked. And perhaps it did. After all, everyone who touched her life seemed to disappear eventually. Her mother had died, screaming beneath moonlight. Her father had never been named. And now she had been dragged across half the kingdom to marry a king who needed a dying woman more than a living queen. The great doors of the hall opened. Silence crashed through the court. King Kael Draven entered alone. Even among wolves, power had a scent. It moved through the hall before him like winter swallowing warmth. Nobles lowered their gazes instinctively. Guards stiffened. Several younger wolves near the walls visibly struggled not to submit beneath the crushing pressure of his alpha aura. Kyle wore black ceremonial armor, lined with silver fur at the shoulders. A dark crown rested against his brow, sharp as wolf fangs. His face was carved from cold restraint, beautiful in the dangerous way a drawn blade was beautiful. But it was his eyes that unsettled people most. Silver. Not natural silver touched by moonlight. True silver. The mark of an alpha, whose wolf had begun crossing into something ancient and monstrous. Ilara looked at him once, and immediately understood why people feared him. Not because he was cruel, because he looked like a man constantly holding violence beneath his skin. Kael approached the altar without speaking. When his gaze finally landed on Ilara, she expected disgust. Instead, confusion flickered briefly across his expression, as though he had sensed something impossible. "You are weaker than they described," he said quietly. The words should have hurt. Oddly, they did not, because unlike everyone else in the room, he sounded almost angry about it. Ilara forced herself to answer. "Would you have preferred someone healthier to sacrifice?" Several nobles gasped softly. No one spoke to the Alpha King that way, but Kael merely stared at her, longer than necessary. His wolf stirred violently beneath his skin. I felt it. For weeks, his curse had been devouring him from the inside. His control was fraying. His beast no longer recognized friend from threat during the full moon. Last month, he had nearly torn apart one of his own commanders after smelling fear. And now this dying girl stood before him without trembling. Worse, his wolf did not want to hurt her. It wanted closer. Kael's jaw tightened. Dangerous. Very dangerous. Priestess Seraphine stepped forward before the silence deepened further. "The moon has chosen," she declared loudly. "Through sacred union, the king's curse shall pass into the dying vessel before winter's end. Veshel. Not bride. Not queen. Just something temporary, meant to absorb suffering." Ilara lowered her eyes before anyone could see the flicker of pain that crossed her face. She had known this already. Still, hearing it aloud felt strangely hollow. The ceremony began. Ancient wolf chants echoed through the hall, while moonwater burned inside silver bowls around the altar. The scent of sacred herbs filled the air thick enough to choke on. Kale removed the black iron ring from his finger. Several nobles visibly tensed. The cursed ring. Legend claimed every woman who wore it eventually died. Slowly, painfully, Seraphine extended her hands toward Ilara. Once this bond is sealed, the curse will feed through her blood instead of yours. Kale did not move. His eyes remained fixed on Ilara's face. You may refuse, he said suddenly. The court froze. Even Seraphine looked startled. Ilara blinked. Refuse? No one had offered her a choice. Since childhood. Her uncle sold her future the moment the royal riders arrived. The village celebrated after she left, because her death would bring royal gold through winter. And yet this terrifying king was offering her escape. Why? Because he pitied her? Because he feared what his curse would do? Or because some part of him hated himself for agreeing to this bargain? Ilara swallowed painfully. If I refuse, she whispered, does your curse disappear? No. Then someone else dies instead. Kale said nothing. That silence was enough. Ilara looked toward the gathered court. None of them saw her as human, only useful, temporary, replaceable. Perhaps Kale understood that better than anyone here. Slowly, Ilara extended her shaking hand. Finish the vows. A strange look crossed his face then. Not triumph, not relief, something closer to guilt. The ring slid onto her finger. Pain exploded instantly. Ilara gasped as freezing fire shot through her veins. The hall blurred violently around her. Silver light erupted beneath her skin like cracks spreading through glass. The wolves in the room began growling, not aggressively, fearfully. Kale grabbed her arm before she collapsed. The moment his skin touched hers, the entire palace shook. A deafening howl thundered through Blackthorn Hall. Every candle extinguished at once. Moonlight burst through the windows in blinding silver streams. And, beneath Ilara's wedding dress, glowing wolf marks began spreading across her chest. The court erupted in panic. What is happening? She's cursed. No, look at the king. Kale stared down at her in horror, because for the first time in 10 years, his curse had stopped hurting. And deep beneath the bond connecting them, his dying wolf whispered a single impossible word. Mine. The hall dissolved into chaos. Nobles stumbled backward, as silver light pulsed beneath Ilara's skin in violent waves. Several guards unsheathed their swords instinctively, though none dared approach the altar itself. Wolves throughout the palace howled one after another, the sound echoing through the stone corridors like a warning carried by the storm. Kyle still held Ilara's arm, and for the first time in years, the curse inside him was silent. No agony tearing through his ribs, no savage hunger clawing at his throat, no monstrous instinct begging for blood. Silence. Relief hit him so suddenly it almost felt like grief. Then Ilara coughed. Blood splattered across the white silk of her wedding dress. Kale caught her before she struck the floor. Move away from her, Priestess Seraphine snapped. Moon priests rushed forward, carrying silver chains engraved with old runes. The sight of them made Kale's wolf bare its teeth beneath his skin. Wrong. Something about this was wrong. The priest circled Ilara cautiously, while the silver marks continued spreading over her chest like glowing branches beneath snow. She is reacting too strongly, one priest whispered fearfully. Seraphine's pale eyes narrowed. Impossible. Kale lifted his gaze toward her. You told me the transfer would weaken her gradually. It should have. Should have. The answer sharpened something dangerous inside him. Ilara trembled violently in his arms. Her breathing sounded uneven now, but strangely stronger, not weaker. The color slowly returning to her cheeks made several nobles murmur nervously among themselves. Kyle noticed it too. The girl who looked half-dead moments ago suddenly seemed warmer beneath his hands. Alive. Seraphine stepped closer carefully. Your Majesty, she must be taken below the temple immediately. Kale did not release Alara. Why? Because something ancient answered the bond. The room fell silent again. Ancien. Among wolves. That word carried terror. Ancient things belonged to the old age, before kingdoms existed. Before the moon goddess abandoned the earth. Before the blood wars shattered the northern pacts. Things older than royal blood should not awaken, especially not inside a dying village girl. Alara stirred weakly against Cal's chest. Her lashes fluttered as though she were trapped between sleep and pain. Then she whispered something. Kyle lowered his head slightly. What did you say? The moon. Her voice barely existed. It's calling me. Every priest in the room went pale. Seraphine immediately raised her hand. Take her now. The silver chains lunged toward Alara. Kale moved before he consciously decided to. A pulse of alpha power exploded through the hall hard enough to crack the altar beneath his feet. The nearest priest was thrown backward into the marble steps while the others staggered under the crushing force of command. No chains, Kale said coldly. Shock rippled through the court. Even Seraphine stared at him carefully now. Your Majesty, she said softly. If she loses control, she is ill. Not dangerous. But Kale no longer believed his own words, because his wolf was listening to Alara's heartbeat, and every second the bond deepened. He sensed something enormous sleeping inside her. Not evil, not corrupted, just buried, like a creature frozen beneath ice, waiting for spring. Seraphine lowered her voice. The old prophecies spoke of moon-marked blood. Kael's eyes darkened. Prophecies are stories told by frightened people, and yet your curse vanished the moment you touched her. That silenced him. The court noticed. Fear spread quickly after that. Nobles began whispering behind jeweled sleeves, while council members exchanged alarmed glances. The king's curse had ruled the kingdom for years. Entire alliances were built around the expectation that Kael Draven would eventually lose control of his wolf. But if the curse truly stopped, everything changed. And if Alara was responsible for it, then she immediately became dangerous. Kael sensed the shift instantly. Politics had scented blood. He looked down at the girl in his arms again. Her eyes remained closed now, but faint silver light still pulsed beneath her throat with each heartbeat. Her body felt unnaturally warm despite the winter cold sweeping through the broken windows. Not dying. Impossible. The royal healers claimed she would never survive the season. Yet his wolf, older and more instinctive than reason, recognized strength growing inside her with terrifying speed. Kael straightened slowly. She will stay in the royal wing. Seraphine's composure cracked for the first time. Absolutely not. The hall froze again. No one contradicted the Alpha King publicly. But Seraphine stepped closer anyway. Moon sigils glowing faintly beneath her pale skin. You do not understand what she may become. Kael's silver eyes sharpened dangerously. Then, explain it. The priestess hesitated. That hesitation told him everything. She knew more than she admitted. Before Kael could press further, Alara suddenly cried out in pain. Her back arched violently. Silver light burst beneath her skin again, and every wolf in the hall dropped to one knee. Gasps filled the chamber, not by choice, by instinct. Even seasoned alphas struggled against it, their wolves forcing submission beneath an invisible pressure pouring from the girl in the king's arms. Kyle's own wolf surged forward violently inside him. Not dominance. Recognition. The realization hit him like ice water. Impossible. No wolf commanded that level of instinctive submission except Alara, he said sharply. Her glowing eyes opened. Pure silver. Not human silver. Moan silver. The storm outside roared hard enough to shake the palace, and somewhere deep beneath Blackthorn Castle, something ancient answered her awakening with a howl old enough to make the walls tremble. Then the lights vanished. Darkness swallowed the hall completely. Screams erupted among the nobles. Kael pulled Alara against him immediately, his senses sharpening as his wolf snapped, fully awake beneath his skin. Something moved in the darkness below the palace. Something huge. Something that had been sleeping for centuries. And it was coming toward her. The darkness lasted only seconds. But inside Blackthorn Hall, those seconds felt endless. Nobles stumbled blindly across the marble floor, while frightened wolves snarled at shadows that did not exist. The storm outside battered the palace windows hard enough to sound like claws scraping against stone. Then came the howl. Deep, ancien, inhuman. It rose from somewhere beneath the castle like the cry of a creature waking after centuries buried underground. Every wolf in the hall froze. Several collapsed entirely. Even Kael felt his blood run cold, because his wolf recognized the sound. Not from memory, from instinct older than memory itself. Elara clutched weakly at the front of his armor. Her silver eyes remained glowing in the darkness, illuminating her pale face like moonlight trapped beneath skin. "What is that?" she whispered. Kael did not answer immediately, because he already knew. The hollow wolf, the ancient beast sealed beneath Blackthorn Castle before the Northern Kingdom was founded, a creature from the old age, worshipped once as a divine guardian, before becoming something feared enough to imprison forever beneath silver runes and blood magic. Children were warned about it in stories. The beast beneath the mountain, the wolf that bowed only to the Moon Queen. And according to every legend ever written, the Moon Queen was dead. The torches reignited suddenly. Priestess Seraphine looked genuinely terrified now. "That seal should never respond," she breathed. Kael turned toward her sharply. "You knew this could happen." "No," she snapped immediately. "I suspected Moon, touched blood, nothing more." But Kael no longer trusted her calm voice. Too many things had gone wrong tonight. Too many secrets hid behind her careful expressions. Another tremor shook the palace. Dust drifted from the ceiling beams. Somewhere below, chains groaned. The sound was enormous. Alive. The nobles began panicking openly now. "The beast is waking. The seal is breaking. This is her fault." Several council members backed away from Elara as though she carried plague. Fear transformed quickly into blame. Kael had seen it countless times within court politics. The moment people sensed danger, they searched desperately for someone weaker to sacrifice. And tonight, Elara stood alone at the center of their terror. One council lord pointed at her with a shaking hand. "She brought this curse into the palace." Elara flinched slightly. Tiny movement, easy to miss. But Kael noticed. Strange anger curled through him instantly. Not because the accusation was false, because she looked like she expected it, as though blame had followed her entire life. Seraphine stepped forward carefully. "Your Majesty, she must be confined until we understand what awakened beneath the castle." "No." The single word cracked through the hall. The priestess stared at him. "You would endanger the kingdom for one dying girl?" Kael's eyes darkened. "The kingdom has endangered her since the moment you dragged her here." Silence. The court was not accustomed to hearing compassion from their king. Kael himself almost hated the unfamiliar protectiveness rising inside him. This bond was affecting him too quickly, dangerously quickly. He looked down at Elara again. The silver glow beneath her skin had dimmed slightly now, but the mark spreading across her chest remained visible above the torn neckline of her dress. Ancient patterns, elegant, almost beautiful, and deeply wrong. His wolf could not stop listening to her heartbeat. Steady now, stronger than before. The sickness that had nearly killed her hours ago seemed to be retreating, as if the curse meant to destroy her had somehow begun feeding her instead. A cold realization settled heavily inside Kael's chest. What if the illness never weakened her? What if it restrained her? Another howl thundered beneath the palace. Closer this time. Elara gasped softly and pressed a hand against her chest. "It knows me." The words silenced everyone. Kael's gaze sharpened. "What do you mean?" Her brow furrowed painfully. "I can feel it." Seraphine immediately stepped forward. "Enough." She goes to the temple. The silver chains rose again. This time Elara recoiled, Visibly, fear flashed across her face for the first time all night. Not fear of death. Fear of the chains themselves. Kyle noticed immediately. What happens if those touch her? Seraphine hesitated. Too long. Kyle's voice turned deadly quiet. Answer me. The priestess's composure hardened. If forbidden moonblood has awakened inside her, silver blessed by the old temple will suppress it. Suppress. Not heal. Not protect. Kyle finally understood. You intended to bind her from the beginning. I intended to protect the throne. The throne, Kyle said coldly. Or your temple. Tension exploded through the hall. The old moon temple existed before the monarchy itself. Even kings treated its priestesses carefully. Their prophecies shaped wars. Their blessings legitimized rulers. But tonight, Kale saw something dangerous beneath Seraphine's calm exterior. Fear. Not of the hollow wolf. Of Ilara. The girl swayed suddenly. Kale steadied her immediately. Her skin burned beneath his hand now. Silver light flickered faintly through her veins again. Take everyone out, Kale ordered. The council erupted instantly. Your Majesty, if the seal breaks, you cannot remain alone with her. Kale's alpha aura exploded across the hall hard enough to crack marble. Leave. No one argued twice. Within moments, the nobles fled the chamber, while guards ushered priests and council members toward the exits. Only Seraphine lingered beside the altar, her pale gaze fixed on Ilara with unsettling intensity. Before leaving, the priestess spoke quietly. The moon goddess does not grant power without taking something in return. Then she disappeared into the corridor. The great doors slammed shut behind her. Silence settled over Blackthorn Hall at last. Only the storm remained, and the strange bond pulsing between king and bride. Ilara slowly pulled away from Kale's grasp. I'm sorry, she whispered. The apology startled him. For what? For whatever I brought into your kingdom. Kyle stared at her. Most people begged him for protection, for favor, for mercy. But this girl apologized for existing. Something about that hurt more than it should have. You did not summon the hollow wolf. How do you know? Because his wolf recognized her. Because the ancient creature beneath the castle had answered her like a forgotten oath. Because for the first time in years, Kyle no longer felt alone inside his own curse. But he could not say any of that aloud. Instead, he studied her carefully. You knew your illness was strange. Ilara nodded weakly. Every full moon felt like something inside me was trying to tear its way out. Did your mother ever explain it? The question changed her expression instantly. Fine. Old pain. She died before she could. Kyle regretted asking almost immediately. Yet Ilara surprised him again. She used to sing to me during the fevers, she said softly. A song about wolves made from moonlight. The storm outside suddenly quieted. Not gradually. Instantly. Kale felt the shift at once. So did his wolf. Something had changed beneath the castle. Then came the sound. Heavy footsteps. Slow. Massive. Approaching from somewhere deep below the throne room. Ilara's face went pale. Kyle stepped in front of her instinctively. The floor trembled once. Twice. Then a crack split across the marble beneath the altar. Silver light burst upward from below. And from the darkness beneath Blackthorn Palace, a gigantic silver eye opened. The eye was larger than a shield. Silver light burned inside it like liquid moonfire as it stared upward through the fractured marble floor. Ancient power rolled through the throne room in suffocating waves, pressing against Kale's chest hard enough to slow his breathing. The hollow wolf had awakened. Not fully, but enough. The enormous eye blinked once, then locked onto Ilara. Not Kyle. Not the throne. Hea. The floor trembled violently beneath them. Cracks spread across the marble like spider webs, while ancient silver runes hidden beneath the throne room began glowing one after another. Kale immediately pulled Ilara backward, just as another section of stone collapsed inward. A roar exploded upward from the darkness below. Not rage. Recognition. The sound shook dust from the vaulted ceilings. Ilara pressed both hands against her ears, gasping as silver light surged painfully beneath her skin again. The marks across her chest spread farther, curling over her collarbone now like living moonlit vines. "It hurts," she whispered. Kael's wolf surged violently inside him. "Protect her." The instinct hit him so hard it almost felt unnatural. He grabbed her wrist before she collapsed again. "Look at me." Her glowing silver eyes lifted shakily toward his. The moment their gazes met, the pain eased slightly. Both of them felt it. The bond. Ancient. Dangerous. Pulling tighter with every passing moment. Kael hated how much relief flooded through him at her touch. For years, his curse had devoured everything human inside him. Sleep became impossible. Rage constant. Some nights he locked himself beneath the palace because he no longer trusted what he would become during the full moon. But now, silence. The beast inside him calmed whenever she was near, and that frightened him more than the curse itself. Another crack thundered across the floor. The silver eye beneath the throne room narrowed. Then, slowly, it lowered, submitting. Kael went still. Impossible. The hollow wolf bowed to no king, no priest, no alpha bloodline. According to ancient records, entire armies once died trying to control it. Yet now, the beast beneath Blackthorn Castle lowered its gaze before a dying village girl. Ilara stared downward in confusion. "Why is it doing that?" Kael did not answer, because he finally understood why Seraphine looked terrified. This was no cursed bride, no ordinary moon-touched wolf. Something far older slept inside Ilara Vey. The great doors burst open suddenly. Royal guards flooded into the hall, alongside council members and moon priests carrying blessed silver spears. Seraphine entered last, her expression grim as she took in the destroyed throne room. Then she saw the glowing eye beneath the floor. For the first time since arriving at Blackthorn Palace, the priestess looked afraid enough to lose control. "It recognizes her," one council member whispered in horror. Another immediately backed away from Ilara. No, that bloodline died centuries ago." Kael's eyes sharpened. "What bloodline?" No one answered. Seraphine recovered first. "Seal the lower gates," she ordered sharply. "No one enters the underground chambers." The guards hesitated. The hollow wolf's eye remained fixed on Ilara. Watching. Waiting. Kael stepped slightly in front of her again. A subtle movement. But Seraphine noticed. Dangerous understanding flickered across her face. "The bond is accelerating," she said quietly. Kael ignored her. "Tell me the truth." Silence stretched heavily. Finally, the priestess spoke. "Long before the Northern Throne existed, the kingdom belonged to the Moon Queens." The court became deathly still. Even hearing the title aloud felt forbidden. Seraphine continued carefully. "Women chosen by the moon goddess herself. They commanded ancient wolves, ended blood wars, and carried divine power strong enough to bend entire packs into submission." Ilara's breathing slowed. Something about the words felt familiar, not remembered. "Fat." "As their power grew," Seraphine said, "so did fear of them. Kings began hunting the bloodline. Temples erased their names. Eventually, the last Moon Queen vanished during the First Winter War." Kael's jaw tightened. "And you think Ilara carries that blood?" "I think," Seraphine whispered. "The throne accidentally awakened it. The hall erupted instantly." "That's impossible. The Moon Queens were monsters. No woman should possess that power." Fear spread faster than fire. Kael watched it happen in real time. The moment people sensed something beyond their control, they rushed to destroy it. Ilara heard every word. Monster. Dangerous. Impossible. The same pattern her entire life. Only now the kingdom itself looked at her with terror. Her fingers curled weakly against her dress. "I never asked for this." The quiet pain in her voice struck Kael harder than the panic around them. Because she truly meant it. She wasn't hungry for power. She was frightened. Alone. And still trying not to inconvenience anyone with her suffering. Something dark stirred inside Kael then. Not his curse. Rage. At the court. At Seraphine. At himself. for allowing this girl to become a sacrifice before understanding what she truly was. One council lord stepped forward shakily. "Your Majesty, she must be executed before the bloodline fully awakens." The room fell silent. Ilara, visibly, froze. Kyle looked at the man slowly. The counselor swallowed hard beneath the king's silver gaze, but forced himself to continue. "If the Hollow Wolf recognizes her, the northern packs may fracture. There are still wolves loyal to the old prophecies. She is not your enemy," Kale said coldly. "We cannot know that." Silver light suddenly exploded through the hall again. Everyone recoiled. Ilara doubled over in pain as glowing marks raced down both arms now, illuminating the throne room in ghostly silver. The hollow wolf beneath the castle roared, and every wolf present immediately dropped to one knee. Forced submission slammed through the room like a storm. Even powerful alphas crashed downward under the unbearable pressure. Only KL remained standing. Barely. His wolf strained violently beneath the ancient dominance flooding the hall. Yet instead of attacking Ilara, his instincts pushed him closer to her. Protect. Guard. Mate. The last word hit him like a blade. No. Impossible. The curse destroyed mate bonds. That was the entire reason this marriage existed. And yet the bond forming between them no longer resembled sacrifice. It felt alive. Ilara lifted her glowing eyes slowly. Tears shimmered along her lashes. "I can hear them," she whispered. Kale stepped toward her carefully. "Hear who?" "The wolves." A deep silence followed. Not normal silence. Listening silence. Then somewhere outside the palace walls, thousands of wolves began howling together beneath the storm-dark sky. The sound spread across Blackthorn Valley like a living tide. Every pack, every territory, answering her. Fear broke fully through the court. Several nobles fled the hall outright. Priests began chanting protective prayers, and Seraphine finally spoke the truth she had been hiding all night. "If the Moon Queen bloodline returns," she said quietly, "the throne itself may no longer belong to House Draven." Kale turned toward her slowly. There it was. The real fear. Not monsters. Not curses. Power. Because the old legends claimed the Northern Kingdom did not belong to kings at all. It belonged to the Moon Queen chosen by the ancient wolves. And now, the wolves were answering Ilara, the girl the kingdom brought here to die. The howling did not stop. It spread across the valley for nearly an hour, echoing through the mountains surrounding Blackthorn Palace, like the kingdom itself had awakened from a long and terrible sleep. Wolves from distant packs answered one another beneath the storm-dark sky, until even the bravest nobles looked shaken. Inside the throne room, no one moved carelessly anymore. Not around Ilara. The glowing marks across her skin had finally dimmed, but the fear they inspired remained. Guards watched her with nervous eyes. Priests tightened their grip on blessed silver weapons whenever she breathed too sharply, and Kyle noticed every single glance. "Enough," he said coldly. The tension in the room snapped instantly. No one challenged him openly, though the council's unease thickened like poison in the air. Seraphine folded her pale hands inside her sleeves. "Your Majesty, the court must convene immediately. The packs will hear those howls before dawn." "They already have." "Then we are running out of time." Kale looked toward the shattered floor where faint silver light still glowed beneath the broken marble. Somewhere below, the hollow wolf remained awake, waiting, watching. For here. His gaze shifted back to Ilara. She stood unnaturally still now, as if terrified any movement might unleash something worse. Blood stained the front of her wedding dress where she had coughed earlier, but her breathing no longer sounded weak. In fact, she looked stronger than when she arrived. Color touched her cheeks for the first time. The sickness retreating from her body felt impossible enough to unsettle even him. Kale had seen dying people before. They did not heal overnight, unless whatever lived inside Ilara was never an illness at all. The realization haunted him. Seraphine stepped closer carefully. She should remain isolated until we understand what she carries. Ilara lowered her eyes immediately. like she expected imprisonment. Kyle hated that instinctive surrender more than he should have. "She stays under my protection," he said. A murmur spread through the council. One elder lord frowned. "Your Majesty, with respect, your judgment may already be compromised by the bond." The words landed heavily, because everyone in the room had noticed the king standing too close to the cursed bride, the way his wolf calmed around her, the fact he had defended her repeatedly, despite political danger. Kale's expression darkened instantly. "Choose your next words carefully." The counselor paled and stepped back, but the accusation lingered in the room anyway. Bunt. The word itself felt dangerous. Kale refused to think too deeply about it because his instincts already terrified him enough. He had spent years avoiding attachment, avoiding touch, avoiding hope. Every woman promised to him eventually suffered because of his curse. His first betrothed died screaming after the bond ceremony failed to complete. Another noblewoman lost her wolf entirely after spending one night inside the palace. Kale stopped believing he was capable of loving anyone safely long ago. And now, this girl appeared. This impossible girl whose presence silenced the monster inside him. It felt less like fate and more like a trap designed by cruel gods. Alara suddenly swayed slightly. Kale reached for her instinctively. The moment his hand touched her waist, silver heat pulsed through both of them. Sharp, intimate. Alara froze. So did he. Their eyes met. For one horrifying second, Kyle felt her heartbeat inside his own chest. Not metaphorically, literally. The bond connected them deeply enough now that emotion bled across its surface. He felt her exhaustion, her fear, her desperate effort not to collapse in front of everyone watching her. And beneath all of it, loneliness, so vast and familiar, it nearly stole his breath. Ilara jerked away first. The connection snapped, but not completely. Kyle still felt echoes of her afterward. The court noticed the exchange immediately. Seraphine's face hardened. The bond is advancing too quickly. Kale ignored her. "Take the council out. We are not finished discussing." That was not a request. The alpha command, beneath his voice, rolled across the room hard enough to silence every protest. One by one, the nobles withdrew. Seraphine lingered longest. Before leaving, she looked directly at Alara. "If the Moon Queen fully awakens inside you," she said softly, "the kingdom will fear you more than death itself." Then, she disappeared beyond the great doors. Silence returned. Only Kale and Alara remained in the ruined hall. For several moments, neither spoke. The storm outside had weakened now, leaving only drifting snow beyond the shattered windows. Moonlight spilled across the marble floor between them like silver water. Kale finally exhaled slowly. "You should rest." Ilara gave a faint, humorless smile. "Do queens sleep in prison towers here?" The bitterness surprised him. Not because it existed, because she usually hid it so carefully. "You think I intend to cage you. You intend to survive me." The words struck too close to truth. Kyle looked away briefly. That hesitation answered her question. Pain flickered across Ilara's face before she buried it again. Of course. Why would this be different from every other moment of her life? Even now she was merely useful. A cure, a temporary solution, not someone worth choosing. She wrapped her arms around herself quietly. "You don't have to pretend kindness, Your Majesty. I know why I'm here." Kale's wolf snarled violently inside him. Not at her, at the sadness in her voice. He stepped closer, before realizing what he was doing. "You think I wanted this marriage?" Ilara met his eyes carefully. "Didn't you?" "No." The honesty startled both of them. Kale dragged a hand through his dark hair, jaw tightening. "I agreed because the curse is killing me. My wolf is losing control. The council fears civil war if I die without an heir. And now?" The question lingered heavily between them. Kale looked at her for a long moment, at the silver marks, still glowing faintly beneath her skin, at the girl who should have been terrified yet somehow remained standing through all of this, at the impossible calm his wolf felt whenever she breathed near him. "Now," he said quietly, "I think the kingdom lied to both of us. Ilara stared at him silently. Something shifted then. Small, fragile, but real. Not trust yet. Only the first crack in the wall between them. A loud horn suddenly echoed through the palace corridors. Once, twice, alarm. Kael's expression sharpened instantly. The throne room doors burst open as Commander Rhys strode inside wearing black battle armor dusted with snow. His face looked grim. "Your Majesty," he said urgently, "the eastern gates are surrounded." Kael immediately stepped forward. "By whom?" Rhys hesitated. "The Iron Fang pack." Ilara felt Kael go completely still beside her. Every wolf in the north knew the Iron Fangs, the largest rival pack beneath the crown. Violent, ambitious, loyal only when fear forced them to be. Their alpha had challenged Kael's rule 3 separate times over the years. "Why are they here?" Kael asked coldly. Rhys looked toward Ilara. They heard the howls. A terrible silence followed. Then Rhys delivered the final blow. "Their alpha is demanding the moon-marked girl be surrendered to them before dawn." Ilara's blood ran cold. Kael's wolf rose instantly beneath his skin. "Protect mine." And for the first time since the bond began, Kael did not deny the instinct. The eastern gates of Blackthorn Palace stood buried beneath snow and torchlight. Hundreds of Iron Fang warriors waited beyond the fortress walls, their dark cloaks whipping violently in the winter wind, while massive wolves prowled between armored ranks. Crimson banners snapped against the storm-dark sky, marked with the brutal sigil of a wolf devouring a crown. A challenge banner, an insult, and beneath it stood Alpha Darius Ironfang. Even from the palace tower, Ilara could feel the violence in him. He sat astride a black warhorse wrapped in iron armor, broad-shouldered and scarred, with one pale eye cut through by an old claw wound. His wolf aura pressed against the fortress like a battering ram testing stone. But it was not strength that unsettled her. It was hunger. The way his gaze searched the battlements like a man looking for property already promised to him. Kael stood beside her at the tower window, silent as winter itself. "Why does he want me?" Ilara asked quietly. Kael's expression hardened. "Because wolves fear what they cannot control." Below them, the Ironfang warriors began striking spear against shield in rhythmic thunder. Boom, boom, boom. The sound rolled through Blackthorn Valley like war drums. Commander Rhys approached carefully behind them. "The council is demanding an immediate answer." "Of course they are," Kael said coldly. Rhys hesitated. Some believe surrendering her would avoid civil conflict. Ilara lowered her eyes immediately. There it was again. The same pattern. Trade the inconvenient girl for peace. She should have expected it by now. Yet strangely, the thought hurt more this time. Because somewhere deep inside her, foolish hope had already begun forming around Kael Draven. A dangerous mistake. Kael turned toward Rhys slowly. "And what do you believe?" The commander glanced briefly at Ilara before answering. "I believe Ironfang would tear the kingdom apart searching for her if we handed her over willingly." Not comforting, but honest. Rhys continued quietly. "The old prophecies matter to the northern packs. If word spreads that the Hollow Wolf recognized her, then every ambitious alpha in the kingdom will come hunting." Kael finished grimly. Ilara's chest tightened. Hunting, not protecting, not understanding. Everyone wanted something from whatever power slept inside her. Kael noticed her expression immediately. "You are not leaving this palace. Can you stop them?" The question lingered heavily. Kael's jaw tightened. Normally he feared no rival pack. But the kingdom stood on unstable ground already. His curse weakened royal authority. Border clans threatened rebellion. And now the return of moon-marked blood could shatter centuries of political balance overnight. Civil war no longer felt impossible. Another blast from the war horns echoed below. Darius Ironfang stepped forward beneath the gates. Then he shouted loud enough for the entire fortress to hear. "Bring out the moon-marked bride." The Ironfang soldiers roared approval. Ilara flinched slightly. Kael noticed. Rage flickered beneath his calm exterior. Instantly. "She is under royal protection," Kael declared from the battlements. His voice thundered across the valley, with unmistakable alpha authority. Darius grinned coldly below. Then why do your priests whisper that she carries forbidden blood? The courtyard below erupted into uneasy murmurs. Kael's silver eyes narrowed. Darius continued loudly, making certain every guard and servant listening could hear him. The old laws are clear. If the Moon Queen bloodline returns, the Northern Pacts have the right to challenge the throne itself. Ilara felt the atmosphere shift around them immediately. Fear, suspicion. Even some palace guards exchanged uncertain glances. Kael stepped forward against the stone battlements. You come armed against your king over bedtime stories? Darius laughed darkly. No, Kael. I came because your cursed reign has finally begun to crack. The insult struck hard. Everyone knew about the curse. Everyone knew whispers had spread through the kingdom for years, questioning whether Kael remained stable enough to rule. And now Darius smelled weakness. Political weakness. The kind wolves killed for. The rival Alpha pointed toward the tower. Give us the girl willingly, he called. And perhaps the Pax will still allow House Draven to keep its throne. Kael's wolf surged violently beneath his skin. Ilara sensed it instantly through the bond. Not fear, murderous fury. The air around him practically vibrated, with restrained violence now. Yet, he did not attack. Not yet. Because kings who lost control in public rarely remained kings long. Darius smirked as though recognizing the restraint itself. Then his gaze shifted upward, directly toward Ilara, and his expression changed. Interest. Predatory interest. Bring her down, he called mockingly. Let us see the dying bride who made ancient wolves howl. Ilara instinctively stepped backward. Kael moved in front of her immediately. The action happened so naturally neither of them acknowledged it aloud, but every watching guard noticed. So did Darius. The rival Alpha's smile faded slowly. Careful, King, he said softly. You're beginning to sound attached. Silence crashed across the battlements. The accusation landed harder than any threat, because attachment meant vulnerability, and vulnerable kings died quickly. Kael's expression became terrifyingly calm. Return to Ironfang territory before sunrise. Or what? Silver light flickered briefly beneath Kael's skin. Not Ilara's power. His own curse. Awake again. Dangerously unstable. Several nearby guards immediately stiffened in alarm. Darius saw it too, and smiled. There he is, the rival Alpha said quietly. The beast beneath the crown. Kael's control snapped. For one horrifying second, the air exploded outward. Stone cracked beneath his boots. Silver wolf eyes flashed violently as a monstrous growl ripped from his throat loud enough to silence the valley. Ilara felt the pain hit him instantly through the bond. Awaken, the curse tearing at his control from inside. Without thinking, she reached for him. The moment her fingers touched his hand, silence. The violent aura vanished immediately. Kael froze. So did every wolf watching. The curse retreated again, just like before. An impossible stillness spread across the battlements. Darius Ironfang stared upward in shock. The rival Alpha understood the danger instantly. Not because Ilara carried ancient blood, because she could calm the king. If the Northern Pax discovered the cursed Alpha King had finally found someone capable of stabilizing his wolf, House Draven's power would become nearly untouchable again. Darius's expression darkened. Ilara realized then that she was no longer merely hunted. She was valuable, and valuable things in kingdoms like this rarely survived long. The rival Alpha slowly stepped back toward his warriors. This is not over, he warned. Then his pale eye fixed on Ilara one final time. When the moon awakens fully inside you, little bride, your king will fear you more than I do. The Ironfang warriors began withdrawing into the storm, but the threat lingered long after they vanished into the snow. Kael remained perfectly still beside Ilara. Her hand still rested against his. Neither had pulled away, because both of them felt it now. The bond deepening, strengthening, changing them. And somewhere far below Blackthorn Palace, the hollow wolf howled again, closer than before. By the time the Iron Fang warriors vanished into the snow, night had fully swallowed Blackthorn Palace. The storm quieted into drifting ash-white flakes beyond the fortress walls, but tension still lingered heavily through every corridor. Servants whispered behind lowered heads. Guards tightened patrols along the battlements. Priests painted fresh moon sigils across the gates, as if symbols alone could hold back whatever had awakened beneath the kingdom. And everywhere Ilara walked, people stared. Not with pity anymore. Fear. It was strange how quickly the world could change. Only yesterday she had been invisible, a dying girl no one considered important enough to remember. Now nobles stepped away from her in silence, as if one accidental touch might alter fate itself. Kale noticed every reaction. He led her through the palace personally, ignoring the servants who froze in shock at the sight of their king escorting his bride himself, instead of leaving guards to handle it. The corridors of Blackthorn Palace felt ancient at night. Moonlight spilled through towering windows onto black marble floors, polished smooth by centuries of royal bloodlines. Wolf statues lined the halls, their silver eyes gleaming in candlelight like silent witnesses. Ilara walked quietly beside Kale, exhausted beyond words. The glowing marks beneath her skin had faded again, though faint traces remained across her throat and collarbone. She kept tugging her sleeves higher to hide them, not because she feared the marks themselves, because she feared what people saw when they looked at her now. A weapon, a prophecy, a threat. Kale finally stopped before a pair of enormous iron doors carved with the crest of House Draven. "This wing is guarded," he said. "No one enters without my command." Ilara looked up slowly. "The royal chambers? You will stay here." Shock flickered across her face immediately. Queens slept beside kings, not sacrificial brides, not cursed girls dragged from dying villages. Kale noticed the confusion and looked away briefly. The eastern halls are easier to defend. A practical excuse. Yet both of them understood the truth beneath it. He wanted her close, not only because of the bond, because every instinct he possessed now screamed danger whenever she disappeared from sight. Kale hated how deeply that frightened him. He pushed open the chamber doors. Warm firelight spilled across dark stone walls lined with silver tapestries. Massive windows overlooked the frozen valley below, while wolf fur blankets covered an enormous carved bed near the hearth. Ilara stopped, just inside the doorway. "This room is larger than my entire house." Something painful tightened inside Kale's chest. Not because she sounded impressed, because she sounded apologetic for noticing. He removed the heavy black cloak from his shoulders and draped it across a nearby chair. "Food will be brought shortly." "I'm not hungry." The answer came too quickly. Kale studied her carefully. Years of ruling taught him how to recognize lies told from habit rather than deception. "You are." Ilara lowered her eyes silently. Another realization struck him. In her village, she probably learned long ago not to ask for more than others believed she deserved. Kale moved toward a carved cabinet near the hearth and poured dark wine into a silver cup. The firelight caught the scars along his hands as he moved. Ilara noticed them immediately. Thin silver scars crossed both palms and disappeared beneath his sleeves. Not battle wounds, burns from the curse. Kyle sensed her gaze and closed his fingers around the cup instinctively. "Does it hurt?" she asked softly. No one ever asked him that. Not the council. Not his commanders. Not even the healers. Kings were not permitted pain, only control. Kale stared into the fire briefly before answering. Every day, silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable. Heavy. Honest. Ilara stepped closer slowly. "And touching me stops it." The directness startled him again. She was quieter than most wolves, but not weak-minded. Ilara noticed things people tried desperately to hide. Kale gave a slight nod. For now. The answer should have relieved her. Instead, sadness crossed her face. "You sound disappointed." Because relief felt dangerous. Because the curse had stolen enough from him already that he no longer trusted hope. Because every time he looked at her, his wolf recognized something his mind refused to accept. Mate. Kale turned away sharply before the bond carried too much emotion between them again. "You should rest." Elara hesitated. What if the marks return? They will. His honesty made her tense. Kyle continued quietly. But no one here will hurt you. She looked at him then, really looked at him. At the exhaustion hidden beneath the king's composure. At the restraint woven tightly through every movement he made. At the loneliness lingering around him like another shadow. And suddenly Elara understood something terrifying. Kyle Draven was just as trapped as she was. The throne caged him. The curse devoured him. The kingdom feared him. And despite all his power, no one had touched him gently in years. The realization unsettled her more than it should have. A knock interrupted the silence. Commander Reese entered carrying a tray himself, instead of servants. Wise. Most palace servants were too frightened to approach tonight. Reese placed warm bread, roasted meat, and herbal tea near the fire, before glancing carefully between king and bride. There's unrest, spreading through the lower city, he reported quietly. Rumors about the Hollow Wolf. Kale's expression hardened immediately. Already? The priests cannot contain it. Reese hesitated before adding, some claim the Moon Queen has returned. The room fell silent again. Elara wrapped her arms around herself unconsciously. Reese noticed. Unlike the council, the commander's expression held caution rather than hatred. He studied Elara like a soldier, assessing an unfamiliar battlefield. Carefully. Then his gaze shifted toward Kale. My king, he said quietly. If the bond becomes public, we know. Reese nodded once. Political disaster. Because if the kingdom realized the cursed king depended on the moon-marked girl to control his wolf, enemies would stop at nothing to separate them. Kale dismissed him after a few more updates. The doors shut once more. Elara moved slowly toward the fire. The warmth felt strange against her skin now. Ever since the wedding, cold no longer settled inside her bones the same way. The constant ache she had lived with for years seemed quieter tonight. Sleeping, or changing. She stared into the flames. Why did the Hollow Wolf bow? Kyle remained silent for several seconds. Then he answered honestly, I don't know. That frightened him most. Not understanding her. Not understanding why his wolf obeyed instincts stronger than reason whenever she was near. Not understanding why fate suddenly seemed tangled around a dying girl who was never meant to survive winter. Elara sat carefully beside the fire. Then pain hit her. Sharp. Violent. She gasped, and doubled over instantly, as silver light exploded beneath her skin again. Kale reached her in seconds. Elara. The marks returned faster this time, spreading across her arms in glowing patterns while moonlight poured through the chamber windows unnaturally bright. Her body arched painfully. It burns. Kyle grabbed her shoulders. The moment he touched her, fragmented images slammed through his mind. A woman singing beneath moonlight. Ancient wolves, kneeling in snow. Silver crowns, stained with blood. And a voice, whispering through darkness. The queen awakens when the beast remembers her name. Kale jerked back sharply. Elara collapsed against the floor, breathing hard. Both of them stared at each other in shock. Because the bond had just done something new. It had shared memory, and neither of those memories belonged to them. Then suddenly, a child screamed somewhere deep inside the palace. Elara's silver eyes widened instantly. The scream cut off abruptly, and from somewhere below Blackthorn Palace, something enormous began climbing upward through the walls. The second scream never came. That silence was worse. Kale was already moving before the echo fully died through the corridors. He yanked the chamber doors open while shadows flickered violently across the palace walls from servants carrying lanterns in panic below. Elara, stay here. But she had already risen. The silver marks beneath her skin glowed faintly, through the sleeves of her gown now, pulsing in rhythm with the strange force moving somewhere beneath the castle. I can feel it, she whispered. Kale cursed under his breath. Of course she could. Whatever connection existed between Elara and the Hollow Wolf was growing stronger every hour. Another tremor shook the corridor. Stone dust drifted from the ceiling. Then came the sound. Scraping. massive claws dragging slowly through ancient stone inside the walls themselves. The palace guards outside the royal wing immediately drew weapons. One younger wolf looked pale with terror. "Your Majesty, something is moving beneath us." Kale's silver eyes sharpened. Where did the scream come from? The lower servant halls. He turned toward Alara once more. "You are staying behind me." The command should have sounded harsh. Instead, it sounded protective. Dangerously protective. Alara followed him through the corridor while the guards formed around them. The deeper they descended into the palace, the colder the air became. Torches sputtered violently, as though struggling to remain lit. And everywhere, the castle groaned, like something ancient was waking inside its bones. Servants huddled together near stairwells, whispering prayers beneath shaking breaths. Some froze completely when they saw Alara walking beside the king. One elderly maid crossed herself in fear. "The Moon Queen," she whispered. Another servant immediately dragged her backward. "Don't say that name aloud." Alara heard anyway. Pain flickered briefly across her face. Kyle noticed. His wolf reacted instantly again. Protect. The instinct was becoming unbearable. They reached the lower servant halls moments later. Blood streaked the stone floor. Not much, but enough to tighten every guard's grip on their weapons. A palace maid stood trembling near the corridor wall, while another servant tried desperately to calm her. "It took him," the maid sobbed. "The wall opened and it pulled him inside." Kale stepped forward sharply. "What took him?" "I don't know." The woman pointed toward the cracked stone corridor ahead. Silver light leaked faintly through the fractures. Alara's chest tightened painfully the closer they moved toward it. Not fear. Recognition. The sensation terrified her. Kale sensed it immediately through the bond. "What is it?" She swallowed hard. "It's calling me again." The scraping sound returned. Closer. The guards raised their spears. One of them whispered shakily, "Gods." The stone wall ahead bulged outward suddenly, then exploded. A monstrous claw burst through the rock. Several guards stumbled backward in horror as enormous silver claws carved through ancient stone like wet earth. Dust filled the corridor while servants screamed and fled deeper into the palace. Then, the creature emerged. Not fully wolf, not fully beast. Ancient silver fur covered a body, scarred with glowing runes, while chains the size of a man's arm hung broken from its throat. Its eyes burned pure moonlight. The hollow wolf, or part of it. The creature was too massive for the corridor itself, forcing stone to crack around its shoulders as it dragged itself halfway from the hidden chamber inside the walls. The guards panicked instantly. "Kill it." Silver spears flew. The moment the blessed metal touched the creature's fur, the beast roared. A blast of power erupted through the corridor hard enough to throw armored wolves against the walls. Stone shattered. Torches extinguished. Kael planted himself in front of Alara immediately, but the hollow wolf ignored everyone else, its glowing eyes fixed only on her. The massive beast lowered its head slowly, not attacking, listening. Alara stared at it in horror. Fragments of memory flickered behind her eyes again. Moonlit forests, ancient songs, a woman with silver markings touching the head of this same creature centuries earlier. Her knees nearly buckled. Kyle grabbed her arm. "Alara, it knows me." The hollow wolf exhaled heavily. Warm breath filled with silver mist rolled across the corridor. Then the creature spoke, not aloud. Inside her mind, "Daughter of the last queen." Alara gasped sharply. The words echoed through her skull, like ancient bells. Kael saw the terror cross her face immediately. "What happened?" Her lips trembled. "It called me daughter." Silence crashed through the corridor. Even the guards froze, because everyone knew what that meant. Not metaphorically. Bloodline. The hollow wolf recognized her by blood. Kyle's pen surged violently beneath his skin. Mate. Queen. Protect. The instincts collided hard enough to make his vision blur for a moment. No. This was impossible. Moon Queen blood died centuries ago. Yet standing beside him was a girl whose touch calmed curses, whose presence awakened ancient wolves, and whose blood the hollow wolf recognized instantly. The beast shifted again, suddenly. Its enormous head turned toward the darkness deeper within the corridor. Then it growled. Low. Warning. Kael sensed danger immediately. So, it isn't alone, he murmured. The corridor lights flickered. Then footsteps echoed from the shadows ahead. Slow. Controlled. Priestess Seraphine emerged from the darkness, surrounded by moon priests, carrying silver chains and ceremonial blades. Her expression remained calm despite the massive beast filling half the corridor. I warned you, she said softly. The hollow wolf snarled instantly at her presence. Seraphine ignored it. Instead, she looked directly at Alara. The awakening has begun faster than expected. Kael stepped forward dangerously. You knew this would happen. The priestess finally met his gaze. Yes. Rage exploded through him. The air cracked with alpha pressure powerful enough to make nearby guards collapse to one knee. You used her. I tried to contain her, Seraphine corrected coldly. Before the old bloodline returned, Alara stared at the priestess in disbelief. You knew what I was. No, Seraphine said quietly. But your mother did. The world seemed to stop. Ilara's breathing faltered. My mother? Seraphine stepped closer slowly, while silver chains rattled softly in the priest's hands behind her. Your mother fled the old temple 20 years ago carrying forbidden blood. Her pale eyes darkened. We were supposed to kill the child before the awakening ever began. Kyle's expression turned murderous, but Alara barely heard him. Her mother knew. All those years. The sickness, the hiding, the fear. It was never random. She had spent her entire life running from something ancient inside her blood. Tears burned behind Alara's eyes. Why didn't she tell me? Because she hoped you would die human. The cruelty of the answer hollowed the air itself. Even the guards looked disturbed. The hollow wolf growled again, this time directly at Seraphine. The priestess lifted one hand calmly. The moon priests behind her raised the silver chains. Kael instantly moved in front of Alara. You touch her, he said softly, and this corridor becomes your grave. Seraphine did not flinch. Your Majesty, she said quietly. If she fully awakens, the throne will never belong to you again. Kael's silver eyes darkened. Then he answered, with terrifying calm. Then perhaps the throne was never mine to begin with. The entire corridor fell silent. Even Ilara stared at him in shock. Because for the first time, the Alpha King had publicly chosen her over the crown, and everyone present understood the danger of that decision. The corridor stood frozen in silence after Kael's words. Even the hollow wolf stopped growling. The ancient beast watched the Alpha King with burning silver eyes, as though measuring the truth inside him. Then slowly, the creature lowered its massive head. Acceptance. The gesture sent visible fear through the moon priests, because ancient wolves did not submit to kings. Yet tonight, both the hollow wolf and the Alpha King stood before the same girl, and the kingdom's balance of power was beginning to crack apart. Seraphine's expression hardened for the first time. You would abandon centuries of royal blood for her? Kael did not look away from Ilara. She is not yours to sacrifice. The words struck Alara harder than they should have, not because they were romantic, because no one had ever said anything like that for her before. Not family, not villagers, not the kingdom. Her entire life, people decided what should happen to her without asking whether she wished to survive it. And now, the most feared man in the north stood between her and everyone else. Dangerously close, dangerously loyal. The bond pulsed warmly beneath her ribs. Gael felt it too. His wolf no longer resisted the truth. Mate. The realization terrified him. Not because he doubted it anymore, because he finally believed it, and fate had chosen the worst possible woman for him to love. The priests lifted the silver chains again. Immediately, the hollow wolf lunged forward, with a roar that shook the corridor violently. Moonlit claws slammed into stone inches from the priests, while silver mist burst through the air like freezing fire. Several priests stumbled backward in terror. One dropped his chain entirely. Seraphine raised her voice sharply. "Hold the line." Kael's aura exploded outward. "Stand down." The command thundered through the corridor hard enough to crack stone beneath everyone's feet. The moon priests froze instinctively under alpha authority, though fear still twisted across their faces. Seraphine looked furious now. "You are making a catastrophic mistake." Kael stepped forward slowly. "No," he said coldly. "You made one the moment you lied to your king." Silence. The accusation struck openly now. Treason. Because Seraphine had hidden the possibility of Moon Queen blood awakening inside Alara before arranging the marriage. The priestess saw the shift immediately. The guards around them no longer looked entirely loyal to her. Dangerous. Very dangerous. So Seraphine changed tactics. Her pale eyes settled on Alara. "Do you truly think he protects you because he cares?" she asked softly. "Ilora Stefane." Kyle's expression darkened instantly. "But," Seraphine continued, "he protects you because his wolf needs you alive. Remove the bond, and he loses control again." Her gaze sharpened. "You are medicine to him. Nothing more." The words cut deeper than Alara expected, because part of her already feared they were true. Kael noticed immediately through the bond. Pain. Doubt. The emotions bled across their connection before she could hide them. "Alara," he began, but she stepped backward slightly. Tiny movement. Still, enough to hurt. Seraphine saw the reaction and pressed harder. "Did he tell you how many women suffered before you?" the priestess asked quietly. "How many futures the curse destroyed?" Kael's jaw tightened violently. "Alara," he said again, rougher this time. "Listen to me." But doubt had already entered the room, and doubt was poison inside bonds like this. The hollow wolf suddenly growled, low in warning, not at Kael, at Seraphine. The priestess ignored the beast entirely. "You believe surviving the curse means you are special," she told Alara. "But the curse always changes before it kills." The words hit too close to Alara's deepest fear. What if she truly was temporary? What if Kael only needed her alive long enough to survive? The bond pulsed painfully. Kael stepped toward her immediately. "That isn't true." "How would you know?" Alara whispered. The question hollowed the corridor. Kael stopped. Because he did not know. He only knew his wolf calm near her. That her touch silenced agony. That something inside him had already become fiercely protective of her existence. But was that love? Or instinct? The uncertainty twisted sharply through him. Seraphine sensed weakness immediately. "The old bloodline destroys kingdoms," she said quietly. "Every prophecy ends the same way. Fire, war, wolves kneeling beneath a queen while kings bleed at her feet." The hollow wolf's silver eyes narrowed, and suddenly, Alara saw another vision. Not memory, prophecy. Blood across a throne room floor. Kael, kneeling with silver chains around his throat. The kingdom burning beneath moonlight. Alara gasped sharply and staggered backward. Kael caught her instantly. "What did you see?" She looked at him in horror. "You dying." The words almost escaped her lips. But before she could speak, a scream echoed through the palace above them. Then another. Commander Reese's voice thundered distantly through the corridors. Guards to the western gate. Chaos erupted immediately. One wounded soldier stumbled down the stairwell, covered in blood. "Your Majesty." He collapsed to one knee, gasping. Iron Fang warriors breached the outer city. Kael's eyes turned lethal. So Darius chose war. The wounded guard looked terrified. Not just Iron Fang. The corridor fell silent again. There are wolves inside the palace helping them. Betrayal. Someone within Blackthorn had opened the gates. Seraphine's expression changed instantly, because she understood the danger before anyone else. If Darius Ironfang reached Alara first, the rival packs could rally around her bloodline and challenge the throne directly. Civil war would consume the north within days. Kael turned toward Reese's approaching soldiers already flooding into the corridor. "Seal the inner palace." "We tried," one guard answered breathlessly. "The western halls are lost. The hollow wolf roared suddenly. Not rage. Warning. The ancient beast turned its massive head toward Alara and lowered itself protectively beside her. Then Kale heard it too. Footsteps. Dozens of them. Closing in fast through the upper corridors. Darius had reached the palace. Kale immediately pulled Alara behind him. The bond surged violently between them. Fear. Protectiveness. Need. And for the first time since the marriage began, Alara realized she was terrified, not of dying, but of losing him. The realization hit just as the palace doors above exploded inward, and Alpha Darius Ironfang stepped through the smoke with blood on his claws. The palace shook with the sound of battle. Steel clashed above the corridors, while distant howls echoed through Blackthorn Castle like wolves tearing at the bones of a dying kingdom. Smoke drifted through the stairwells. Blood stained the ancient marble floors. And through it all, Darius Ironfang smiled. He stood at the top of the broken stairway surrounded by armored wolves wearing crimson battle marks across their throats. Several royal guards already lay dead behind him, their silver cloaks darkened with blood. But Darius barely looked at the bodies. His pale eye remained fixed entirely on Alara. "There you are," he said softly. The way he spoke made her skin crawl. Not hatred. Possession. Kale stepped fully in front of her. The Alpha King's silver eyes glowed violently now, his control fraying beneath battle, betrayal, and the bond raging between them. "You breach my palace," Kale said coldly. "Then spill blood beneath my roof." Darius shrugged. "Your guards resisted." The hollow wolf snarled thunderously beside Alara, silver mist curling from its jaws. Ironfang warriors visibly recoiled from the ancient beast. Even Darius's expression tightened briefly. "So, the legends were true," he murmured. The rival Alpha slowly descended the stairs. Step, step, step. Every movement deliberate. Every movement dangerous. "You should have surrendered her peacefully," Darius said. "Now the kingdom will drown for her anyway." Kale's wolf pushed violently against his skin. "Kill him." The instinct thundered through him hard enough to shake the corridor lights. But Alara felt something else beneath the rage. Wine. The curse was returning. Battle always worsened it. The closer Kyle moved toward violence, the more unstable his wolf became. Darius noticed too. His grin sharpened cruelly. "She calms you," he observed aloud. Interesting. The surrounding guards shifted uneasily. Everyone understood the danger of that truth now. A king dependent on one woman could be controlled through her, used against her, destroyed beside her. Alara suddenly understood why Seraphine feared the bond. Not because it weakened Kyle, because it made him vulnerable. Darius spread his arms slightly. "Give me the girl, Kale. The Pax already whispered that the Moon Queen has returned." His voice darkened. "You cannot keep both the throne and her." The words struck like prophecy, because deep down, Kale feared the same thing. Kings were not permitted divided loyalty, and yet every instinct inside him already chose her first. Alara stepped forward before he could answer. "Why do you want me?" Kale immediately grabbed her wrist. "Alara." But Darius answered anyway. "Because power matters." His pale eye gleamed. "And ancient blood matters more." The honesty chilled the corridor. Darius looked at Alara, almost thoughtfully. "Do you know what happens if the Northern Pax believe the Moon Queen lives again?" Alara said nothing. "They will kneel," Darius whispered. Fear rippled through the royal guards. The rival Alpha continued calmly. "Half the kingdom still remembers the old stories. Wolves who secretly despise the crown. Pax who believe kings stole power that belonged to the Moon Queen centuries ago." Kale's expression darkened further. "Civilva." Exactly as feared. Darius looked toward him again. "Marry her publicly beneath pack law instead of temple law, and every Northern Alpha would be forced to acknowledge her authority." Silence crashed through the corridor. Alara felt Kale go completely still beside her, because Darius was not speaking only to her anymore. He was tempting the king himself. A united kingdom, an uncontested throne, a stable wolf bond, Everything Kyle had fought for his entire life could be secured through her. If he used her power correctly. Ilara's chest tightened painfully. Seraphine's words returned instantly. You are medicine to him. Darius saw the doubt flicker across her face and smiled slowly. Now you understand. Kael turned toward Ilara immediately. Don't listen to him. But she could already feel the uncertainty buried deep beneath his emotions through the bond. Not uncertainty about protecting her. Uncertainty about himself. Whether his feelings truly belonged to him or to the wolf bond chaining them together. And that uncertainty hurt. Far more than she expected. The hollow wolf suddenly growled again. Louder this time. Warning. Kael sensed danger instantly. Too late. One of the moon priests standing behind Seraphine moved suddenly. Silver chains flew through the corridor, straight toward Ilara. The blessed metal wrapped around her wrists before anyone could react. Pain exploded through her body. Ilara screamed. Silver light burst violently beneath her skin, while the glowing marks across her chest ignited like fire. The hollow wolf roared with enough force to crack the ceiling. Kael moved instantly. Too instantly. The curse inside him snapped. Silver-black claws tore through his hands as his wolf exploded partially free beneath his skin. Several nearby guards recoiled in terror as monstrous power erupted through the corridor. Darius smiled coldly. There he is, the beast beneath the crown. Kael barely heard him. All he heard was Ilara screaming. The silver chains burned against her skin, while moonlight burst from her body in violent waves. Ancient symbols blazed across the corridor walls. The priests panicked immediately. She's awakening. Hold the chains. Seraphine's face finally lost composure. No, stop the ritual. Too late. The chains had triggered something. Ilara's body arched painfully as silver fire erupted around her. The corridor vanished beneath blinding moonlight, and suddenly, every wolf in Blackthorn Palace dropped to their knees. Every single one. Royal guards, Iron Fang, warriors, priests, Alphas. Even Darius crashed downward beneath overwhelming pressure. Only Kael remained standing. Barely. His silver eyes widened in shock as Ilara rose slowly into the air wrapped in moonfire. Her hair lifted weightlessly around her face, while ancient silver markings spread fully across her skin like living starlight. Beautiful. Terrifying. Divina. The hollow wolf lowered itself completely before her. Submission. The corridor shook, violently. Then thousands of voices echoed through the bond at once. Ancient wolves. Ancient queens. Ancient memories. Ilara saw everything. The moon queens were never tyrants. They were guardians, chosen to bind the hollow wolves and protect the northern packs from the darkness beyond the mountains. But the kings feared them. So the bloodline was hunted nearly to extinction. And Kael's curse. Her breath caught. The curse was never natural. It was created centuries ago by priests loyal to the throne. A weapon designed to ensure no king could ever bond safely with a moon queen again. Horror crashed through her. The entire kingdom had been poisoned by fear. Kael staggered slightly as the truth bled across their bond into him too. His curse, his suffering, his entire life shaped by ancient betrayal. Seraphine looked horrified now. She remembers. Ilara slowly lowered her glowing silver gaze toward the priestess. You knew. The quiet words carried enough power to shake the corridor. Seraphine stepped backward. The old bloodline would have destroyed the kingdom. No, Ilara whispered. You destroyed it first. Moonfire exploded outward. The silver chains shattered instantly, and every wolf present bowed their heads before the girl they once brought here to die. Moonfire poured through Blackthorn Palace like a living storm. Silver light flooded every corridor, every tower, every ancient stone carved beneath the mountain kingdom. Wolves throughout the castle remained forced to their knees beneath the crushing pressure radiating from Ilara's awakening. No one had ever felt power like this before. Not even Kyle. He stood at the center of the shattered corridor, staring at the girl floating before him in stunned silence, while silver flames spiraled around her body, like moonlight given life. This was no curse, no accident, no dying village girl desperately clinging to survival. This was a queen reborn from blood the kingdom failed to erase. Ilara slowly descended back toward the floor. The moment her bare feet touched stone, the corridor trembled softly beneath her. The hollow wolf bowed lower. Kale's wolf did the same inside him. Not submission to power. Recognition. The truth settled through him with terrifying clarity. Mate. Not because fate forced it. Because somewhere older than kingdoms had chosen them both, long before either was born. Darius Ironfang remained kneeling several feet away, struggling violently against the pressure crushing every wolf in the palace. His pale eye burned with equal parts fear and hunger. Impossible, he rasped. Ilara turned toward him slowly. The silver in her eyes no longer looked human. It looked eternal. "You came here to claim me," she said softly. The words echoed unnaturally through the corridor. Darius forced himself upward halfway, despite the overwhelming pressure. "The northern packs need strength." "No," Ilara answered quietly. "You wanted control." The rival alpha's expression twisted. Because she was right. Darius never cared about prophecy. Only power. He saw a fractured kingdom and believed the Moon Queen bloodline could become the weapon that finally shattered House Draven forever. But now, standing before her, even he understood this was something far beyond political ambition. Ilara looked toward the trembling moon priests next. "You hunted children." Several priests lowered their eyes immediately. Seraphine alone remained standing. Barely. The old priestess's face looked pale now, years older beneath the moonfire illuminating the corridor. "We protected the kingdom," she whispered. "From what?" Silence answered. Because there was no answer anymore. The truth had already surfaced. The Moon Queens protected the North once. The throne feared losing authority, and fear became massacre. Kale watched Ilara carefully. This was the moment that mattered most. Power like hers could easily become monstrous beneath betrayal and pain. He had seen rulers consumed by vengeance before. But Ilara did not look hungry for revenge, only heartbroken. That frightened him in an entirely different way. Because grief, this deep reshaped kingdoms, the bond between them pulsed sharply. Ilara turned toward him slowly, and for the first time since the awakening fully began, Kale saw uncertainty in her eyes instead of fear. "You knew nothing about this," she whispered. "Not accusation. Realization." Kale stepped toward her carefully, while the kneeling wolves watched in stunned silence. "I swear it." The bond carried truth between them instantly. Ilara felt it. Every lonely year, every cursed full moon, every woman his curse destroyed. Every moment, he believed himself too dangerous to love anyone safely. And suddenly she understood something devastating. Kale had spent years believing he ruined everyone who came near him, just as she spent years believing her existence brought suffering. Two broken lives shaped by lies older than both of them. The realization nearly shattered her. Kale stopped directly before her now. Moonfire reflected across his silver eyes, while the bond surged violently between them. Not curse. Not obligation. Something real. Something terrifyingly human beneath all the ancient magic. "You should hate this kingdom," he said quietly. Ilara swallowed painfully. Part of her did. The village that feared her. The priests who hunted her bloodline. The throne that married her to death. Every piece of it hurt. But then she looked at Kale and saw the same wound living inside him too. "I'm tired of hatred," she whispered. The words broke something inside him. Kyle reached for her slowly, carefully, as if still afraid touching her too firmly might destroy this fragile, impossible thing growing between them. Ilara let him. The moment his hand touched her face, the curse inside him vanished completely. Not silence this time. Gone. Kyle froze. His wolf, wild for years, poisoned for years, finally became still. Ho! The realization hit him hard enough to steal breath from his lungs. The corridor sensed it too. Every wolf present felt the shift immediately. The cursed king no longer carried death beneath his skin, and suddenly the political consequences became terrifying. Darius understood first. His expression darkened violently. If the Pax discover this, he whispered, House Draven would become unstoppable. A king cured by the Moon Queen herself. Ancient wolves awakened beneath the throne. The rival alphas would either kneel willingly or start a war before Kael and Alara fully united the kingdom. Seraphine saw it too. Fear flickered across her face again. Not fear of Alara. Fear of what came next. Because the old world was dying in front of her eyes. Then suddenly, a horn echoed through the palace. 3 sharp blasts. Commander Rhys's voice thundered from above. Your Majesty. The urgency cut through the corridor instantly. Rhys appeared moments later covered in blood and snow, breathing hard. Kael's expression sharpened. Report. The Southern Pax arrived. Darius's face changed immediately. More enemies. More wolves. More chaos. But Rhys's next words silenced everyone. They came carrying white banners. White. Not war. Submission. The commander looked directly at Alara. The Southern Alphas are requesting an audience with the Moon Queen. The corridor fell deathly silent, because with those words, the rumors had become reality. The kingdom now knew she existed. And outside Blackthorn Palace, thousands of wolves were already choosing sides. Dawn never truly reached Blackthorn Palace. The sky beyond the fortress remained drowned beneath heavy silver clouds, while snow drifted endlessly across the mountains surrounding the capital. Yet despite the darkness, the entire kingdom had awakened. Wolves filled the valley below. Thousands of them. Pack banners stretched across the snowfields in every direction. Southern clans bearing white surrender cloths. Northern warriors carrying crimson war sigils. Eastern alphas arriving beneath silver moon standards older than the throne itself. All of them had come for one reason. Alara, the girl once meant to die quietly before winter's end, now stood at the center of a kingdom preparing to either kneel or burn. Inside the throne hall, tension suffocated the air. The shattered marble floor had been temporarily sealed with iron plates, while royal guards lined the towering chamber walls. Council members whispered frantically among themselves beneath pale faces. Some looked terrified, others calculating, and above them all, seated upon the black throne of House Draven, King Kael watched the court like a wolf preparing for blood. Alara stood beside him, not below the throne, beside it. That alone had already shocked half the kingdom. The glowing moon marks remained visible across her throat, despite the silver cloak draped around her shoulders. Servants avoided meeting her eyes directly. Priests refused to stand too near her. But the wolves could not stop staring, because instinct remembered what history tried to erase. The great doors opened. Southern Alpha Lords entered first beneath banners of surrender. Hardened warriors who commanded thousands crossed the hall slowly before lowering themselves to one knee. Not before Kael, before Alara. Shock rippled violently through the royal court. Even some council members stood abruptly in disbelief. The Southern Alpha at the front bowed his head deeply. The Frostfang territories recognized the blood of the Moon Queen. Another followed, then another. One by one, wolves throughout the hall lowered themselves before her. Ilara's chest tightened painfully. This should have felt triumphant. Instead, it felt terrifying, because every kneeling wolf increased the danger surrounding her existence. Kael sensed it immediately through the bond. Fear, not for herself. For him, the throne, the kingdom. The emotional ache struck him harder than expected. Even now, after everything done to her, Alara feared becoming the reason the North collapsed into war. Darius Ironfang remained chained beneath heavy guard near the center of the hall, his pale eye fixed bitterly upon the scene unfolding before him. You see it now, he muttered darkly toward Kael. The throne belongs to her already. Kael ignored him, but part of him knew the rival Alpha spoke truth. The kingdom was shifting beneath their feet. Seraphine stood near the council platform dressed once again in ceremonial white, though her expression looked carved from stone now. The old priestess watched the kneeling wolves with quiet devastation. Her temple's authority was dying, because ancient instinct outweighed doctrine. Always. One council lord finally rose shakily from his seat. "This cannot continue," he declared loudly. "If every pack in the north begins swearing loyalty to the Moon Queen bloodline, the royal succession itself becomes unstable." Another immediately answered. "The kingdom has survived under House Draven for centuries and nearly collapsed under the curse." The argument exploded instantly. Nobles shouted over one another while pack leaders exchanged dangerous looks across the chamber. Old rivalries resurfaced. Ancient loyalties awakened. War lingered in the room like smoke. Ilara felt it all. Every heartbeat. Every rising fear. The bond tied her senses unnaturally close to the wolves surrounding her now. Their emotions pressed against her mind in overwhelming waves. Anger, hope, violence, devotion. She nearly staggered beneath the weight of it. Kale noticed instantly. His hand brushed hers beneath the throne platform. Grounding. Varm. Immediately, the overwhelming pressure eased. The court saw it happen. The king calming the Moon Queen with a touch. The Moon Queen steadying the king's curse with her presence. Together, not separately. That frightened the council more than anything else, because united power could not easily be controlled. A sudden voice cut sharply across the hall. The old laws remained clear. Seraphine stepped forward slowly. Silence fell immediately. The priestess's pale gaze moved between Kyle and Ilara carefully. "If the Moon Queen bloodline truly survives," she said calmly, "then the ancient right must decide whether she rules beside the throne or over it." The chamber erupted. Several nobles protested instantly. Kyle's silver eyes darkened dangerously. "Explain." Seraphine folded her hands together. Before the Blood Wars, every Moon Queen faced the trial of the Hollow Wolf. Ilara's chest tightened. The Hollow Wolf. Even hearing its name now stirred strange echoes inside her blood. The priestess continued quietly. "If the ancient beast accepts her fully, the kingdom must recognize her divine claim." "And if it rejects her?" Kale asked coldly. A heavy silence followed. Then Seraphine answered, "She dies." The room froze. Ilara felt Kale's rage immediately. Violent. Instant. No. The single word cracked through the throne hall hard enough to shake the chandeliers. But Seraphine did not back away. "The ancient laws existed before your throne, your majesty." Kale rose slowly from the black throne. Every wolf in the room stiffened, because the king looked terrifying now. Not merely angry, protective. The curse may have vanished, but the beast inside him remained very real. "You ask me," Kale said softly, "to place her before the same creature your temple imprisoned centuries ago?" "The Hollow Wolf cannot be deceived," Seraphine answered calmly. "If she truly carries the queen's blood, it will kneel." Her eyes sharpened slightly. "If not, the kingdom deserves to know before civil war destroys us all." The logic was brutal and effective. The council immediately began murmuring agreement, because if Ilara refused the trial, rivals would claim she feared exposure. If she accepted and survived, everything changed forever. Ilara understood before anyone spoke it aloud. This was not merely a trial. It was a public judgment. The kingdom intended to decide whether she was queen or monster. Kyle turned toward her instantly. "You will not do this." But Ilara looked toward the wolves, kneeling throughout the hall. Then toward the nobles already preparing for war. And finally, toward the man beside her. The king who spent years carrying suffering, never meant for him. The king who chose her publicly, despite everything it risked. If she refused now, the north would tear itself apart around them. Slowly, Ilara lifted her eyes toward Seraphine. When? The hall went silent again. Kyle started here. "Ilara." She met his gaze carefully. "If this ends the fighting, it won't." His voice was rough now, honest, because Kyle already understood something she did not. If the Hollow Wolf truly accepted her publicly, the kingdom would never allow anyone else beside her again. Not even him, Seraphine answered quietly. "The trial begins at moonrise." The throne hall seemed to darken around the words. Moonrise. Only hours away. And suddenly, Alara realized the truth. Tonight, she would either become queen or die before the entire kingdom. Moonrise approached too quickly. By late evening, Blackthorn Palace had transformed into something ancient and restless beneath the silver storm clouds gathering overhead. Torches burned along every tower. Wolves filled the courtyards below in endless numbers, their howls echoing across the valley, while rumors spread faster than winter wind. The Moon Queen would face the Hollow Wolf. Some prayed for her survival, others prayed for her death, and beneath all of it, the kingdom waited to see who would rule when dawn came. Alara stood alone near the enormous window of the royal chamber, watching snow spiral through the darkness. The silver cloak around her shoulders could not quiet the unease twisting inside her chest. Queen, monster, savior, curse. The kingdom could not decide what she was. Truthfully, neither could she. The moon marks beneath her skin glowed more strongly tonight, illuminating faint silver patterns across her arms like living starlight. Every passing hour sharpened her senses further. She could hear wolves howling miles beyond the fortress walls. She could feel fear moving through the palace like cold smoke. And somewhere deep beneath Blackthorn Castle, the Hollow Wolf waited, not sleeping anymore, watching. A soft knock interrupted the silence. Kale entered before she answered. He wore black battle leathers instead of royal robes tonight, silver buckles strapped across his forearms, while a ceremonial sword rested at his hip. The sight of him looked less like a king preparing for ritual, and more like a man preparing for war. Alara immediately sensed his anger. Not at her, at the trial, at the kingdom, at himself, for being unable to stop what was coming. The bond carried all of it between them now. Kael closed the chamber doors behind him slowly. You should eat something. The ordinary words almost hurt, because both of them knew this might be their final quiet moment together. I'm not hungry. You said that yesterday too. A faint smile touched her lips despite everything. Tiny, fragile, but real. Kyle stared at her for several seconds after that smile disappeared. Gosh, he was already ruined. The realization settled through him with terrifying certainty. Not because of the bond, because somewhere along the way, this quiet, stubborn girl had become the center of every instinct he possessed. Protect her. Stay near her. Keep her alive. Not wolf commands anymore. His own. Alara looked back toward the snow outside. Do you think I'll survive? The question hollowed the room. Kael crossed the distance between them slowly. I won't let anything hurt you. That isn't an answer. No, it wasn't. Because the truth terrified him. The Hollow Wolf recognized her. Ancient magic answered her blood. But no one knew what would happen once the trial fully awakened the Moon Queen power sleeping inside her. Not even Seraphine. Kael stopped directly beside her. Moonlight spilled across both of them through the towering windows. If the trial goes wrong, he said quietly, I'll stop it. Alara shook her head immediately. And start a war? I don't care. The honesty stole her breath. Kael rarely spoke emotions aloud. Everything about him was restraint, control. Silence sharpened into armor. Yet now, he looked exhausted from fighting himself. Alara studied him carefully. You would sacrifice the throne for me. Yes. No hesitation. No calculation. Just truth. The bond surged violently between them at the confession. Kael immediately felt her fear deepen. Not fear of him. Fear for him. Kael. The sound of his name in her voice nearly destroyed what little control remained inside him. He lifted one hand slowly toward her face, paused, still asking permission even now. Alara leaned into his touch before realizing she had done it. The moment shattered something fragile between them. Kael's fingers brushed softly against her cheek while silver warmth pulsed through the bond. The curse no longer separated them. No pain punished him for closeness anymore. Only need. And God's. He wanted more. Not possession. Not control. Her trust. Her safety. Her future. Things he no longer believed he deserved. You should never have been brought here to die. he whispered. Ilara's eyes stung unexpectedly, because beneath all the fear and politics and ancient magic, that remained the simplest truth of all. Kael lowered his forehead gently against hers. The world outside vanished. No throne, no prophecy, no kingdom clawing itself apart. Only warmth, only breathing, only the terrifying tenderness growing between them. Then suddenly, pain ripped through Ilara's chest. She gasped sharply. Silver light exploded beneath her skin again. Kael caught her instantly, as she stumbled backward. Ilara. The moon mark spread rapidly across her throat and arms, while ancient whispers flooded her mind in violent waves. Runes, songs, blood, and one terrible truth. The hollow wolf was not waiting for her judgment. It was waiting for release. Ilara's eyes widened in horror. Kael saw it immediately. "What is it?" "The chains," she whispered breathlessly. "The chains beneath the castle aren't imprisoning the beast." Another pulse of silver light shook the chamber. Memories poured through her faster now. Ancient queens, standing beneath moonlit ruins. Priests screaming. Kings ordering executions. And the hollow wolf, howling as silver chains wrapped around its body. Not because it was evil, because it tried to protect the Moon Queen bloodline from slaughter. Ilara looked up at Kael in horror. "Your ancestors imprisoned the Guardian." The chamber went deathly silent. Kael's expression hardened instantly. Before he could answer, the palace horn sounded. Long, deep, ceremonial. Moonrise. The trial had begun. Far below the palace, thousands of wolves started howling together beneath the rising moon. The sound rolled through Blackthorn Valley, like the beginning of war. Kael's hand tightened around hers instinctively. He did not want to let go. Neither did she. But somewhere beneath the castle, the hollow wolf called to her blood again. And tonight, the entire kingdom would witness what answered back. The ancient arena beneath Blackthorn Castle had not been opened in centuries. Yet tonight every torch along its massive stone walls burned bright beneath the rising moon. Thousands of wolves filled the descending terraces surrounding the circular pit carved deep into the mountain itself. Nobles wrapped in fur-lined cloaks crowded beside hardened alphas from rival packs, while priests lined the upper platforms, holding silver staffs engraved with old moon runes. The entire kingdom had come to witness judgment. At the center of the arena stood a colossal gate, forged from black iron and chained shut, with glowing silver restraints, thick as tree trunks. Behind those gates, the hollow wolf waited. Its breathing alone shook the stone beneath their feet. Ilara entered the arena beside Kael, beneath complete silence. No one mocked her now. No one whispered dying bride. The wolves watching her looked terrified, and somehow that hurt worse. Snow drifted down through the open ceiling far above, melting into silver steam whenever it touched the moonfire, still flickering faintly across Ilara's skin. The glowing marks along her arms now resembled ancient royal sigils more than wounds. Kael walked close enough that their shoulders brushed. A deliberate choice. The court noticed immediately. So did Seraphine. The priestess stood beside the arena altar wearing ceremonial white robes that swept across the stone like pale smoke. Her expression remained unreadable as she watched the king and the moon-marked girl descend together into the pit. Darius Ironfang stood restrained behind silver chains near the royal guard line. Even imprisoned, his gaze never left Ilara. The rival Alpha understood something the others did not. Tonight would decide far more than succession. It would decide whether ancient power returned to the north permanently. Seraphine lifted her staff slowly. The trial of the hollow wolf begins. Her voice echoed throughout the arena. By blood and moonlight, truth shall be revealed. The priests struck their staffs against stone. Boom, boom, boom. The sound vibrated through the mountain itself. Ilara felt the hollow wolf stir instantly behind the chained gates. Waiting, recognizing her, Kael stepped closer to her side. "You do not have to do this." The words came quietly. For her alone. Ilara looked up at him. The moonlight softened the sharp edges of his face tonight, though tension still carved deeply through his expression. He looked like a man moments away from violence. And she realized something then. KL truly intended to destroy this entire arena if the trial threatened her life. The thought should have frightened her. Instead, warmth spread painfully through her chest. "You would burn the kingdom for me," she whispered softly, "if necessary." No hesitation again. The bond surged warmly between them. Seraphine noticed. So did the wolves surrounding the arena. Dangerous. The king's devotion was becoming visible now. Public. Impossible to deny. The priestess raised her voice again. "Ilerave, blood of the forgotten line. Step forward." Every eye in the arena followed her. Ilara descended the final stone steps alone. The moment she entered the center of the pit, the silver gates behind her began shaking violently. A deafening roar exploded through the arena. Several wolves recoiled instinctively. The hollow wolf had awakened fully. Silver chains groaned loudly as massive claws slammed against the iron restraints from the other side. Kyle's entire body tensed. His wolf hated this. Every instinct screamed danger. Yet beneath the fear, another sensation burned stronger. The hollow wolf was not enraged. It was desperate. Seraphine began chanting in the old language. Moon runes ignited across the arena floor one by one, surrounding Ilara in circles of silver fire. The gates slowly opened. Darkness spilled outward first. Then glowing silver eyes appeared within it. The hollow wolf emerged. Gasps rippled through the arena instantly. The beast was enormous, far larger than before. Ancient silver fur shimmered beneath moonlight, while broken chains dragged behind its massive body like relics from another age. Glowing scars covered its throat and chest where old restraints had cut deeply into flesh centuries earlier. But its eyes looked painfully intelligent, not monstrous. Lonely. The creature stepped fully into the arena. The mountain itself seemed to tremble beneath its weight. Every wolf present lowered their gaze instinctively, except Ilara. The hollow wolf stared directly at her, and suddenly the bond between them exploded open. Ilara saw everything. Ancient queens standing beside this creature beneath moonlit forests. The first northern kingdom united through peace instead of conquest. Children laughing while giant wolves guarded sacred valleys. Then, blood. Kings afraid of losing power. Moon queens murdered in their sleep. The hollow wolf tearing through armies, trying to protect the last surviving heir. And finally, betrayal. Centuries of imprisonment beneath Blackthorn Castle, while the world above forgot the truth. Tears burned down Ilara's face. The beast was never evil, only grieving. The hollow wolf lowered its massive head toward her slowly. The entire arena stopped breathing. One movement from the creature could tear her apart instantly. Kyle's wolf surged violently beneath his skin, ready to attack despite impossible odds. But Ilara stepped forward instead. Gasps erupted around the arena. "Ilara!" Kale shouted sharply. She ignored him. Not recklessly. Certain. Because the hollow wolf's sorrow echoed through her own heart now. The giant beast stopped inches away from her. Then slowly, it bowed. The arena exploded into chaos. Thousands of wolves cried out simultaneously, while nobles rose in panic from their seats. Even hardened alphas stared in open disbelief. The guardian had accepted her. The hollow wolf pressed its forehead gently against Ilara's hand, and silver moonfire erupted across the arena. Ancient runes awakened along every wall. The chains binding the creature began shattering one by one. Seraphine's face drained of color instantly. "No." Kale looked toward her sharply. "What did you do?" But Ilara already understood. The trial was never meant to test her. It was meant to keep the hollow wolf imprisoned forever. The chains only remained intact, while no true Moon Queen lived. And now, the beast was breaking free. The mountain shook violently. Huge cracks split across the arena floor, while silver fire burst upward from beneath the stone. Wolves screamed and stumbled backward as the hollow wolf rose to its full terrifying height. Not attacking. Awakening. The old magic of the north returned with it. Seraphine looked horrified now. The seal is collapsing. Kale immediately moved toward Alara. But before he reached her, the arena exploded. Stone shattered outward in a deafening roar. And from the darkness beneath Blackthorn Castle, something far worse than the hollow wolf began rising toward the surface. The explosion split the mountain open. Stone and silver fire erupted through the ancient arena, while wolves screamed and scattered across collapsing terraces. Massive cracks tore through the floor beneath Blackthorn Castle as something enormous moved upward from the darkness below. Not the hollow wolf. Something older. Something the kingdom had buried deeper than history itself. Kale reached Alara, just as another section of the arena collapsed inward. He pulled her against him while shattered stone crashed where she had stood seconds earlier. "Move!" Commander Reese roared from above. Royal guards rushed civilians toward the exits as panic spread through the stadium in violent waves. Nobles shoved one another beneath falling debris while rival alphas struggled to maintain control over terrified wolves. But the hollow wolf remained perfectly still. The gigantic beast stood protectively over Alara, silver eyes fixed on the widening abyss splitting open beneath the arena floor. It was afraid. Alara felt the emotion clearly through the ancient bond now connecting them. Not fear for itself. Fear of what was waking below. The mountain groaned violently. Then came the sound. Chains snapping. Hundreds of them. Far beneath the castle. Seraphine stumbled backward in horror. No, it cannot be alive. Kyle's silver gaze snapped toward her. What is down there? The priestess looked pale enough to collapse. The first king. Silence crashed through the chaos. Even the hollow wolf growled low at the words. Ilara's chest tightened painfully as fragmented memories surged through her again. A king wearing black silver armor. A throne soaked in blood. Moon queens burning beneath sacred trees. And a curse forged from betrayal itself. Kale's expression darkened. Explain, now. But before Seraphine could answer, a hand emerged from the abyss. The entire arena froze. Black claws gripped the shattered stone edge, while silver fire curled around ancient armor, buried beneath centuries of darkness. Slowly, impossibly, a figure pulled itself upward from the depths beneath Blackthorn Castle. The first king, or what remained of him. Gasps echoed throughout the collapsing arena. The creature still resembled a man in fragments. Tall, broad-shouldered, crowned in broken silver. But darkness moved beneath cracked skin like living smoke, while monstrous wolf eyes burned from within, a face half consumed by ancient corruption. And around his throat, Moon Queen blood marks glowed black instead of silver. Ilara felt horror slam through her chest, not just because of what he was, because she suddenly understood. The curse infecting Kale's bloodline was never inherited naturally. It spread from him. The first king murdered the Moon Queens to steal their power, and the magic corrupted him into something monstrous. The ancient creature climbed fully from the abyss. Thousands of wolves immediately collapsed beneath overwhelming pressure. Even Kale staggered. The monster's gaze swept across the arena slowly, before locking onto Alara. Then it smiled. A terrible, ruined smile. At last, it rasped. Its voice sounded like bones grinding beneath ice. The hollow wolf roared thunderously and lunged between Alara and the creature immediately. The monster laughed. "You still guard them," it whispered. Then it struck. The force of the attack shattered the arena floor completely. The hollow wolf crashed backward into stone pillars while black fire exploded through the pit. Wolves screamed and fled toward the upper exits. Kyle immediately shoved Alara behind him. "Reese!" he shouted. "Get everyone out!" The commander barked orders instantly while royal guards dragged wounded nobles toward safety. But many wolves remained frozen, because they recognized the impossible truth now. Their kingdom had been built on a lie. The first king was no hero. He was a monster, imprisoned beneath the throne. The ancient creature stepped slowly through the destruction, chains dragging behind him like dead serpents. His blackened eyes remained fixed on Ilara. "The Queen's blood survives," he murmured softly. "Then fate truly hates me." Ilara's body trembled. Not weakness. The moon power inside her reacted violently to his presence. Hatred. Ancient hatred passed through generations of murdered queens. Kael sensed it through the bond instantly. "Ilara." She looked at him. Fear flashed across his face for the first time since she met him. Not fear of dying, fear of losing her. The realization hurt more than the collapsing arena around them. The ancient king suddenly looked toward Kael. A dark smile spread slowly across his ruined face. "My bloodline survives too." Kael's expression turned murderous. "You are not my king." "No," the creature whispered. "I am your beginning." The words hit like poison. Kael felt it immediately. The same darkness, living once inside, his curse pulsed violently in response to the creature's presence, like recognizing its source. The first king lifted one clawed hand slowly. "Come here, descendant." Black fire erupted toward Kael. Ilara moved before thinking. Moonfire exploded from her body in blinding silver waves as she threw herself between them. The powers collided violently. The entire arena detonated with light. Kael grabbed Ilara before the impact hurled her backward into the shattered stone. She gasped sharply as pain tore through her chest. The first king stopped moving. For the first time, the monster looked surprised. Silver moonfire still burned around Ilara's body despite the darkness pressing against it. The hollow wolf rose again behind her with a deafening roar. And one by one, every wolf remaining in the arena lowered their heads before Ilara. Not because she commanded it, because instinct recognized its true ruler. The first king's expression darkened. "They still choose you," he snarled. Ilara slowly stood. The moon marks across her skin now glowed brilliantly beneath the falling snow, while silver fire circled around her like living spirits. She no longer looked like the dying bride brought here to survive winter. She looked ancient, royal, terrifyingly calm. "You murdered them," she whispered. The creature laughed bitterly. "I loved one of them." Silence followed. Even Kael started. The first king's ruined gaze drifted briefly toward the hollow wolf. "She chose the beast over me," he rasped. "So I took the power anyway." The confession hollowed the air. Love, jealousy, obsession, an entire cursed kingdom born from one king's inability to accept rejection. The first king looked toward Kael again. "You understand me, descendant? Loving them destroys us." Kael's hand tightened around his sword. "No," he said quietly. "Loving her is the first thing that ever freed me." The bond surged violently between him and Ilara. The first king's expression twisted with rage instantly, because Kael had done what he never could, chosen love without trying to possess it. The monster roared. Darkness exploded through the arena again, and the final battle for the kingdom began. Darkness swallowed the arena. The first king's roar shook the mountain itself, as black fire erupted through the shattered pit, consuming broken stone and dead banners alike. Wolves fled through collapsing corridors while the storm above Blackthorn Castle spiraled violently around the open ceiling. And at the center of it all stood two kings, one built from centuries of greed and fear, the other still deciding what kind of ruler he wished to become. Kael stepped forward slowly, silver eyes blazing beneath the falling snow while moonfire reflected across the black steel of his sword. Behind him, Ilara could feel the bond pulsing violently between them. Not fear, choice. The first king lifted clawed hands wrapped in darkness. "You would destroy your own bloodline for her?" Kael's voice remained calm. "You destroyed ours long ago." Then he attacked. The force of his wolf aura exploded through the arena hard enough to crack the remaining pillars. Kael moved with terrifying speed, black cloak whipping behind him as silver steel collided against claws forged from ancient corruption. The impact thundered like lightning. The first king staggered backward one step. Only one. Then he smiled. "You truly carry my blood." Dark fire burst outward from his body violently enough to send Kael crashing across the arena floor. Stone shattered beneath the king's back, while black corruption spread rapidly across the ground like living poison. Ilara felt Kael's pain instantly through the bond. Sharp. Burning. The ancient curse still recognized its creator. The hollow wolf lunged forward with a deafening roar before the monster could strike again. Massive silver claws slammed into the first king, driving him backward through broken columns, while moonfire exploded around them both. The arena shook violently, but the first king only laughed. Even as the hollow wolf tore through his armor, the darkness inside him regenerated flesh faster than wounds could form. "He cannot die," Seraphine whispered from the upper ruins. Commander Reese turned sharply toward her. "Then tell us how to kill him." The priestess looked toward Ilara, and fear crossed her face again. Only the Moon Queen can end what the first queen failed to destroy. Ilara's stomach tightened. No, she already understood what that meant. The first queen never imprisoned the monster because she lacked strength. She lacked the heart to kill the man she once loved. The realization nearly hollowed her chest. Kael crashed back into the fight before the first king could overpower the hollow wolf completely. Silver-black claws tore partially through his hands now, while his wolf surged fully awake beneath his skin. But unlike before, the curse no longer controlled him. Ilara steadied him. Together they fought like something ancient and inevitable. The first king noticed too, and hatred twisted across his ruined face. "She weakens you," he snarled at Kael. "No," Kael answered coldly. "She reminds me I'm human." The words struck harder than any blade, because the first king had forgotten that centuries ago. Darkness erupted violently from the monster's body again, this time aimed directly at Ilara. Kael moved instantly. He threw himself between them without hesitation. Black fire tore through his chest. The sound Ilara made barely sounded human. Kael staggered hard, blood splattering across the broken arena floor while darkness spread rapidly beneath his skin. The bond screamed with agony. "Ilara!" Reese shouted desperately, but she was already moving. Moonfire exploded around her in blinding silver waves as she dropped beside Kael. His breathing sounded rough now, painfully shallow. The darkness was infecting him, trying to reclaim his bloodline. Kael grabbed her wrist weakly. "Don't." He already knew what she intended. The final memories flooding through her made it painfully clear. Moon Queens carried one power no king could steal. Sacrifice. Not destruction. Not domination. They purified corruption by taking it into themselves. But no queen ever survived afterward. Tears burned down Ilara's face. Kael saw the truth instantly through the bond. "No." The word came sharp despite his weakening body. "You are not dying for me." The first king laughed darkly nearby while battling the hollow wolf. "She will," he rasped. "They always do." Ilara's heart shattered, because beneath all the rage and monstrosity, the first king still mourned the queen he destroyed. And somehow, that made everything even sadder. Kael tried to rise, despite the darkness consuming his veins. "Ilara, listen to me." She touched his face gently. The bond trembled violently between them. "I spent my whole life surviving," she whispered softly. "But you taught me something more dangerous." Kael's silver eyes widened slightly. "Being loved." The words nearly destroyed him. Ilara leaned forward and kissed him. Not softly, not timidly, like someone trying to memorize warmth before winter stole it away. The bond erupted completely. Every wolf in the arena felt it. The mate bond. True. Ancien. Chosen freely. Moonfire burst across the sky above Blackthorn Castle in enormous silver waves, while thousands of wolves throughout the kingdom howled together beneath the storm. The first king screamed, because the thing he spent centuries trying to control had finally escaped him forever. Love without possession. Power without cruelty. A king choosing devotion over domination. Ilara rose slowly. Silver light surrounded her completely now. The hollow wolf stepped beside her immediately. Notre servant. Guardian. Kael tried to stand again but collapsed to one knee, darkness still poisoning his blood. "Ilara, She looked back at him one final time and smiled, not sad, peaceful. Then she turned toward the first king. The ancient monster roared and unleashed every ounce of darkness remaining inside him. The arena vanished beneath black fire. Ilara walked directly into it. Moonfire answered instantly. Silver consumed darkness in violent spirals, while ancient wolf spirits rose around her, like stars awakening beneath the snow. The hollow wolf howled beside her, and for one impossible moment, every moon queen before her stood, reflected within the silver light. The first king finally looked afraid. No. Ilara reached him, touched his face gently, and whispered, "You were loved once too." The darkness shattered, not exploded. Shattered, like grief, finally breaking apart after centuries. The first king froze. The corruption consuming him cracked apart in silver fractures, spreading across his body while moonfire purified the curse at its source. For the first time in hundreds of years, the monster looked human again, and then he turned to ash beneath the falling snow. Silence consumed the arena. The storm stopped. The darkness vanished, and Ilara collapsed. Kale's heart nearly stopped. He caught her before she hit the broken stone. Ilara. No answer. The moonfire around her faded rapidly now, too rapidly. Fear, unlike anything he had ever known, tore through him. No, not after this. Not after finding her. Not after finally becoming free. Kale pulled her against his chest desperately, while snow drifted softly through the ruined arena around them. Ilara, look at me. Her eyes fluttered weakly. A faint smile touched her lips. The curse is gone, she whispered. Then her body went still, and for one horrifying moment, the entire kingdom believed the Moon Queen had died. Silence swallowed the arena. No wolf moved. No one breathed. Snow drifted softly through the shattered ceiling, while Kyle knelt in the ruins, holding Ilara's motionless body against his chest. The bond between them had gone terrifyingly quiet. Not broken. Worse. Fading. No, Kale whispered. The word barely existed. Blood stained the front of his black armor, where the darkness had pierced him earlier, but he no longer felt the wound. Pain meant nothing now compared to the cold terror spreading through him. Ilara. Her head rested against his arm limply, silver moon marks dimming rapidly beneath pale skin. The glow that once illuminated the arena had nearly vanished entirely. Around them, thousands of wolves watched in stunned silence. The Moon Queen had destroyed the ancient curse, and now she was dying for it, exactly like the old stories. Kale's hands trembled for the first time in years. Not rage. Fear. Raw enough to hollow him open. Commander Rhys slowly approached through the ruins, though even the hardened warrior looked shaken. My king. Kyle's silver eyes snapped upward violently. Get the healers. Rhys hesitated, because everyone already understood. No ordinary healer could save someone who burned away divine power itself. Still, the commander immediately barked orders toward the surviving guards. Moon priests rushed downward into the shattered arena, while wolves throughout the terraces began lowering themselves to one knee again. Not ceremony. Hrif. Even Darius Ironfang stood silent now, pale eye fixed on the girl once brought here to die. The rival Alpha finally understood something brutal. The kingdom had not followed Ilara because she was powerful. They followed her because she chose sacrifice, when she had every reason to choose vengeance. That kind of devotion could not be conquered by force. Seraphine descended slowly into the ruins. The old priestess looked years older now. Her pale gaze settled on Ilara with something close to regret. Kale saw it, and fury surged instantly through him. You knew this would happen. Seraphine did not deny it. The Moon Queens always gave too much. Kale's wolf snarled violently beneath his skin. You let her walk into death. No, the priestess whispered quietly. She chose it. That only hurt worse, because it was true. Ilara chose compassion over survival, even for a kingdom that never deserved her. Kale lowered his head against hers desperately. The bond flickered faintly again. Weak. Distant. Like the last ember before darkness. Panic clawed through him. He had spent years believing himself cursed beyond love. Now that he finally held it in his arms, the world threatened to take it away immediately. His voice broke roughly. "You don't get to leave me." Nothing. Only silence. Then suddenly, the hollow wolf stepped closer. The gigantic beast lowered itself beside Alara carefully, silver eyes glowing softly beneath the drifting snow. Ancient sorrow moved through the creature like an old wound reopening. Kale looked toward it sharply. The beast nudged Alara's hand gently with its enormous head. Then it howled. Not a war cry, a mourning song. The sound rolled through Blackthorn Valley beneath the stormless sky, echoing across mountains and forests older than kingdoms themselves. And one by one, wolves across the entire north answered. Thousands, then tens of thousands. The howls spread beyond Blackthorn, beyond the capital, across every packed territory in the kingdom. A call, not to war, to remembrance. Alara's fingers twitched. Kyle froze instantly. The bond pulsed once. Tiny, weak, but there. Alara? No response yet. The hollow wolf lowered its head again, silver light beginning to gather slowly around its massive body. Seraphine's eyes widened. The Guardian. Moonfire drifted upward from the hollow wolf like glowing snow. Ancient energy. Ancient loyalty. The beast was giving its own strength to her. The realization stunned the entire arena. The hollow wolf had guarded the Moon Queen bloodline for centuries, and now it refused to let the last queen die. Silver light spread gently across Alara's body. The dim moon marks beneath her skin flickered brighter again. Once, twice. Then her chest rose sharply with breath. Gasps erupted throughout the ruins. Kale nearly stopped breathing himself. Alara. Her lashes trembled weakly. The bond surged suddenly back to life. Warmth slammed through him so violently it almost hurt. Alive. Alive. Alara's silver eyes opened slowly beneath the falling snow. The first thing she saw was Kale. The expression on his face nearly shattered her heart. Relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. Not kingly restraint. Not control. Just a man moments away from breaking because he thought he lost the person he loved. "You're crying," she whispered weakly. Kale let out something between a laugh and a broken breath. "I nearly buried the kingdom for you." A faint smile touched her lips. The arena remained completely silent around them. Thousands of wolves, watching the impossible unfold. The Moon Queen survived, not because she was invincible, because she was loved. The hollow wolf slowly stepped backward as the last of its silver light faded. Then, before the entire kingdom, the ancient guardian bowed fully before Alara and Kyle together. Not to queen alone, not to king alone, to both. Unity. The old magic recognized them as one. Seraphine stared at the sight in stunned silence. Then slowly, the priestess lowered herself to one knee. The entire arena followed instantly. Every alpha, every noble, every surviving priest, even Darius Ironfang, bowed his head. Not forced. Chosen. Kyle looked around the ruined arena quietly. At the wolves kneeling beneath the moonlight. At the kingdom forever changed. Then, his gaze returned to Alara, the girl once offered to him as a dying sacrifice. The girl who broke a curse older than the throne itself. The girl who taught a feared king how to love without fear. Kyle brushed trembling fingers gently across her cheek. "My queen," he whispered. This time, the title belonged to her completely. And for the first time in centuries, the kingdom bowed, not from fear, but from hope.